We say good morning to our viewers across Africa and beyond. Thank you very much for joining us on a Thursday morning here on Breakfast Central to share with you and, of course, have some of the biggest conversations across the continent. I am Osaogi Ogbonwa.
And I am Joe Hansen reporting for duty here live this morning on Breakfast Central. It feels really quite different to sit on this side after a long time, Osaogi.
Absolutely.
So I can only imagine what the thoughts of the viewers are like. Where is Olive? Well, you can call me Olive because I do have O in my name. I'm Joe Hansen, welcoming you. Africa's biggest stories live here, and we're looking forward to milk them. Now, it was on the 13th of July, 1969, that Thembekile Tembi Mandela, the eldest son of Nelson Mandela, was killed in a car accident while his father was serving life sentence in Robben Island. Mandela was not allowed by the authorities to attend Thembi's funeral or to have access to details about the fatal crash. Thembi died when 3 cars collided on the fog-bound Tulls River Road, leaving 4 people dead and another 4 injured. Well, that's a bit of African history for you today on July 13. We've taken a look at that. And there's another history, by the way, on July 13. Oh, by the way, today happens to be my anniversary. So I'm saying happy anniversary to my wife, Hansen, is possibly watching the show this morning if she's not possibly tired. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. All right, let's go to one man. We don't know what he's doing today on the 13th of July. Lekan Ekaro.
Good morning to you, Joe. Good morning to you, Osaogi. Thanks so much for granting me the opportunity to be with you. You guys, of course, we understand the fact that it's 3 guys on the show. A couple of our friends said that this is Men in Black style on Breakfast Central. So definitely, we're going to see what the viewers are going to be looking forward to as part of what we'll be bringing to the table this morning. But I know it's going to be a bumper package with so many stories that will be cutting across, of course, across Africa that we'll be bringing onto the platform this morning.
All right, Lekan, before we go, when is your anniversary?
What anniversary?
You don't have any anniversary.
I have so many anniversaries.
Okay,
so we need to be specific.
When is your wedding anniversary?
Your wedding anniversary.
Okay, so that should be December 24th.
Okay.
Wow, you're one of those who remember.
There's a theory that say men, a lot of men always forget.
So why did you ask anyway?
All right. Anyway, we'll, of course, join you for the news in a bit, but let's quickly share with our viewers what our top stories are this morning.
Former Mozambique minister to face corruption charges in the United States. We'll take that story.
And tax increase, 1 killed as Kenyan protesters defy ban. Some say even more than 1 person.
Nigeria's president writes NAS seeks 500 billion palliative. That's a story.
And NDLEA moves to clamp down sale and usage of laughing gas. It's interesting.
And in sports, FIBA under 16 Rwanda girls arrived to the EC ahead of tournament. You get all of these and many more stories here on Breakfast Central.
Africa is rising. Again, we hear our sounds echo on the other side. Afrobeats and Afropop reinvented, hip life brought back to life, new energy infused into Kwaito and Kwela. Africa is balling. Every stroke, every shot, every raise, we find our place at the top. Taking the helm of real power, new hopes for democracies. A breed of entrepreneurial tigers, audacious storytellers, and a promising generation raring to go. Truly, Africa is rising. And this is where the stories that define our continent live.
Looking at the headlines this morning in Breakfast Central, we begin the news at this hour in West Africa, where the class of 1999 ex-governors paid a visit to Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja. Members of the class who have been visiting several members of the class serving in the current government is indicative of their readiness to participate in the current administration. The class of 1999 ex-governors comprises governors and deputies that served between 1999 and the year 2007, including former President Goodluck Jonathan and the current Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume. In the meantime, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has written to the House of Representatives seeking an amendment to the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act. The President says the amendment is to allow the federal government source 500 billion naira for palliatives to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, read the President's letter during plenary on Wednesday. Tinubu says the money would be sourced from the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act of 819.5 billion naira. And also, Nigeria's House of Representatives has frowned at excess charges and illegal deductions by commercial banks in breach of extant provisions of the law, adopting a motion initiated by Godwin Ofiono at the plenary chaired by the Speaker Tajuddin Abbas. The House mandated its Committee on Banking and Currency to probe into the issue and report within 1 month. Ofiono claimed he was privy to information that some banks and financial institutions unethically fleece customers through excess charges and unauthorized deductions. And staying in West Africa, the Côte d'Ivoire government on Wednesday says 30 people have died in the past 3 months in floods triggered by an exceptionally strong rainy season. Government spokesman Amadou Coulibaly, speaking after a cabinet meeting, says the country's economic capital, Abidjan, has been particularly hit, recording 22 deaths. He adds that authorities will step up pre-deployment of rescue services at risk areas and pursue a program to demolish illegally built shanty homes there. Last year's rainy season claimed 19 lives. In the meantime, 6 people were killed in Kenya on Wednesday as demonstrators defied a ban to join a protest called by opposition leader Raila Odinga against tax hikes. A police officer says 3 deaths were recorded in Mlolongo, where a group of demonstrators had blocked the road to protest. The police officer adds that 2 others died in Kitengela and 1 in Emali. Another policeman also confirmed the 6 fatalities in 3 towns.
The government have got many empty promises. Like now, the matatu fares are up, fuel costs are up, food cost is very high. You can't afford even to get a single meal. We go on maybe on water per day. These are very fake government. And we are praying for Baba to be hard, to press it hard until something happens. We need low costs. We are living in hard times. Kenya is in a poor state. It shall reach a time when even to educate our children shall be a problem.
Polisi wanatumia nguvu kupita kiasi kwa wananchi. Japo wengi wameumizwa, hata kuna ndugu yetu huko ndani bado anashughulikiwa, amepigwa risasi kwa mguu.
In South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa says Wednesday's attacks in which 21 trucks were set ablaze are acts of economic sabotage. According to the police, unknown assailants set alight 4 lorries in the northeastern province of Mpumalanga on Wednesday, in the latest in a string of incidents that have alarmed transport operators and businesses. The police added that intelligence suggests that the attacks on trucks may be business-related, with investigations said to be underway. We now head to Zimbabwe, where a High Court Judge David Mangota has barred ex-President Robert Mugabe's loyalist Saviour Kasukuwere from standing as a presidential candidate during elections scheduled for next month. Briefing journalists after the judgment, Lewis Uriri, lawyer to Lovedale Mangwane, a Zimbabwean citizen who challenged Kasukuwere's candidacy, said the High Court ordered Kasukuwere to stop masquerading as a presidential candidate in any way, as he was no longer a registered voter.
Part of the court that the nomination of President Xavier Kasukere was set aside, and it was held to be in violation of constitutional provisions and in violation of the rights of the applicant, the constitutional rights of the applicant. But we are saying we are going to appeal against this decision. We are going to fight to the bitter end until we are given the right to participate in these elections.
And that's all at this hour. I am Lekon Onabanjo. Over now to Osaroge and Joe.
Thanks a lot, Lekon. Interesting stories there. The very first two mostly caught my attention. And of course, it is the class of 99. I did ask about this a few weeks ago on the show. That it seems like the class of 1999 are coming back, bit by bit. Just to bear in mind that more than, a fair number of those persons had serious corruption allegations after they left office in 1999. I'm not sure where they currently stand, but of course, EFCC came and went. And of course, the 500 billion naira for palliatives is something we're going to be talking about today, and I really can't wait to.
Yes, of course, we hope that conversation will start because, of course, it has been said that when it comes to ruling out reforms and having some cushioning effects, it's always good to have those mitigating effects in place first so that when you roll out reforms and policies, whether or not they would have adverse effects on the citizens, you already have something that could help serve as reprieve for the people. And we just hope that the money will be released and will be judiciously used for the intended purpose.
I think you just hit the nail on the head with your very last words there. We hope it will be used. I think usage here is a very key word for every Nigerian who's actually followed closely since that story came up yesterday. But you know what?
My question, aren't we tired of hoping, though? Because, it's not the first time we're hoping it was used. If you remember in the previous administration, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs spoke about hundreds of billions of naira that were used to feed school children even during a lockdown. We have, Abacha loot that has come and gone. We have hundreds of billions of naira that, we can't account for. And now we're talking about we hope we use it properly. We have an auditor general. We have different levels of auditing.
Also, in situations like this, the only thing we can do is to hope. And that's why most times when it comes to conversations around having key figures in power, it's always important to appoint or select or elect, in any case, people that have pedigree when it comes to accountability and people who have what it takes to manage the resources of a country well and efficiently. So when all chips are down, the only thing you can do is to hope and continue to put pressure on government to see that mechanisms, regulatory agencies, and every other person within the stakeholder are able to stand up on their feet and ask for the accounts, ask for people to account for the monies that has been spent. And that's very, very important. Putting mechanisms in place is very, very important when it comes to governance and expenditures.
Anyway, I guess we'll come back to this conversation in the second hour, most importantly. Thank you so much, Lekon, for sharing with us the latest news from Breakfast Headlines.
Thank you, too.
All right, so let's move on swiftly. This morning, it's Thursday morning. In case you just tuned in, this is Breakfast Central. The front pages are up next.
We start in Kenya this morning. It's, of course, on the Daily Nation newspapers. It says, shut down, day of chaos. Two contrasting images emerged from the ashes of the chaos yesterday to provide a remarkable commentary of the two worlds of a country teetering on the precipice. One where the rule of law and order carried the day, and the other where civil disobedience disrupted economies and livelihoods and even brought lives to a violent end. Different newspapers with different figures basically reporting the number of lives that were lost yesterday in Kenya. Protest deaths reports that 7 people were killed and dozens injured. Schools closed. Parents, of course, keep their children at home over safety fears. Traders count losses as they close shop in fear of vandals. Matatu truck drivers keep off roads over retest and, of course, fuel prices, and also skirmishes in at least 20 counties as Kindiki warns of arrests. Really sad there. And you can see, of course, the whole front page of the Daily Nation this morning is talking about the protesting that took place yesterday in Mombasa, in Homa Bay, in Nyeri, and in Kisa County.
So in Nyeri, they were actually having a great time because they were skipping.
they
were skipping. Why while others in different parts, like in Kishi, for instance, they were crying because of the that.
Sad story there. Well, those are the stories on the Daily Nation. That's majorly what's going on in Kenya this morning. I mean, I'm guessing that there's other things William Ruto will be focused on also.
All right. Anyway, let's move to the citizens now. Let's take you to Tanzania. Academia, private sector discuss employability. That's page 5. Focusing on that story as well. For those who are talking about employment, the question is, are you employable? Page 5 has more details to that question. National clarification. Zanzibar clears confusion over men plaiting their hair. You know, I mean, I wish I had an afro or something. I would have spoken more on this, but let me just go straight to the major headlines on the front page.
I know I'll be very uncomfortable.
Yeah, same here. Vodacom faces 10 billion shilling suit over data privacy. It's a big thing, and you do remember that countries are indeed signing these laws, these bills into law, especially that which covers data and so on and so forth. Well, a businessman based in Shinyanga claims that Vodacom Tanzania shared his personal particulars with ChatGPT, but the telecommunication firm has raised a preliminary objection and wants the case to be struck out with cost. Is that possible, sharing your information with ChatGPT? He should check, but I don't want to go into the story details inside of page 2. Take a look at the picture there. You see the soldiers, the military men, actually dragging someone. It says violence flares up in Kenya as protesters defy ban. Yeah, that's it. We'll give you more insight into that story very soon, so we'll let you in. But the picture shows Kenyan police officers arresting opposition supporter during demonstrations in Nairobi. Why you should avoid defaulting on that loan at all costs? Well, come to West Africa, Nigeria. You see where they send messages to all your family members and your picture and saying that you've been killed because you borrowed money and so on and so forth. But then again, read up why you should not default in paying. And lastly, I'll take one last one. Concern as Vikoba role in financial inclusion dwindles. Page 11 is where you find that story. That's what we'll take on the front page of The Citizen.
All right, and now let's move to stories in Nigeria this morning in the Punch newspapers. It says here, NLC protest Tinubu's 500 billion naira subsidy palliative demands 300% pay rise. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with the NLC here. You know, you cannot palliative your way away from the poverty and the suffering the Nigerians currently dealing with, you know, and if this 500 billion naira is not coming every month, then it's really just a waste of time. And how many people really are you going to spend 500 billion naira to? How many people do we have in our database that we see desperately need part of this 500 billion naira to, you know, help with the petrol subsidy, removal? I need some of it. Am I going to get? I'm not sure I will. So I mean, you know, these are things that I believe that the government needs to really take, you know, a closer look at, and we're going to continue to ask if the current administration, you know, seeing what Nigerians dealt with in the previous administration, if they truly are serious about a better Nigeria. Reps sit on 500 billion naira subsidy relief request today. Federal government labor for fresh negotiations. It says 500 billion naira not enough for 125 million poor Nigerians affected by deregulation. And that's the NLC and TUC speaking. No Nigerian child should lack education, Malala tells federal government. Oh, okay. And reps probe contract fraud, revenue leakages in Nimasa. House to investigate 14-year power outage in Ondo community. And also after Obasanjo's revelation, Atiku can't label me corrupt, says the former Benue State Governor Samuel Otom. A few other stories this morning. Army chief orders IPOB raid, rubbishes amnesty for bandits. Nigeria redeems $500 million bond despite revenue challenges. And final story, boards, Obi kicks, sustainable offers opposition governors slots. Okay, all right, those are the stories on the Punch. Let's go to the Nation newspapers. This is where we're going to be wrapping up for the first half.
Yeah, I mean, I was struck by that story. Boards, Obi kicks, sustainable offers opposition governor slots. I mean, anyway. Let's move on now. We'll talk some more about that. Let's go straight to the Nation. You find it on the screen there. And one of the biggest stories that you find on the Nation newspaper has it that Tinubu remedy for subsidy withdrawal hardship soon. Tinubu remedy for subsidy withdrawal hardship soon. Okay, that's one of the biggest stories. Also, there's one in red t-shirt, jeans wearing lawmaker sent out from House of Reps chamber. The lawmaker walked into the House of Reps with his t-shirt and jeans. They told him, "What are you doing here? Will you leave this place?" And then he had to leave. You could read up. You want to know who the lawmaker is? We're not going to tell you. Go read up and you find who it was. On the front page there, you also see President ask lawmakers to approve 500 billion naira palliatives cash. And you can see pictures of, governors. Remember, like Osawage said, from way back. And all of them are guarded, meeting with, the president. Like they say, you always talk, it's politics, right?
Yeah,
it's politics. And you can see some well-known names there. I mean, you could see former governor of Edo State. He's right there.
That's actually the one that, triggered me because I know I was still in Edo State at the time when he was governor in 1999 to 2007. I remember what the reality was really. In Edo State while he was governor. I remember also when he was running for re-election, his father, it's a popular joke that his father in his defense, to get people to vote for him once again, said, when a child fails, what do you ask the child to do? To repeat. Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that.
So it was obvious that he had failed, in his first term as governor. So, well.
Anyway, let's see what will come out of it. Possibly, it's like the current president said, he's going to meet with more people. He's going to consult. Yes, in his words, he would consult. So maybe this part of the consultations. Investors' confidence now boosted, says NGX. Federal government states to partner on electricity. By the way, what's electricity like in your area now?
It's been pretty good.
It's been pretty good, but mine the past 2 days. Come on, guys, get back to work. I mean, you guys are doing great. Don't mind me. But that's all we're going to take on the front page as we take one very last one. CBN directs payment of dollar receipts in Naira. You might want to watch Business Edge. 11 a.m. West African time here. You might get explanation on that as well. That's all we're taking on the front pages this morning. What have you just tuned in? This is Breakfast Central. No, you're not wrong. You're in the right place. We are News Central. We are Africa First. We'll go for a break. When we come back, we'll begin our top stories right away.
Hey lovers, my name is Sharon Ojai-Grube.
Hi guys, my name is Femi Adebayo.
My name is Anado Adige. Siabo Ojo.
Steve Chicks, I'm an actor.
Uche Montana.
Popularly known as Neo Energy. My name is Neo Mobak Bafre.
Uzo Arukwe, you're hanging out with News Central.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
News Central TV.
News Central TV.
News Central TV.
News Central TV. Did you hear me? And if I'm
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it. People who know that news is more than just a conversation starter, it's our stories. Because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, the stories that put Africa first.
At least two people have died during protests in Kenya, which of course took place yesterday, the latest in a series of protests against recent tax hikes and the rising cost of living. Police in the capital, Nairobi, were seen firing tear gas towards some stone-throwing protesters who set fire to tires. Yesterday's protest was the second within a week.
Well, Kenya's opposition leader Raila Odinga, who lost against President William Ruto in last year's elections, has repeatedly called on Kenyans to protest as the country struggles with debt and rising prices. The new taxes have added to frustration in East Africa's economic hub, with inflation at around 8%, while the hikes have for now been suspended by the country's High Court. Well, we're looking forward to bring a lawyer and public affairs analyst to join us. Mr. Dudley, if you're there, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you're a lawyer, you're a public affairs analyst. Let's start first with the later. Let's look at what the affairs of the nation is looking like, especially the situation, and what Kenyans are indeed saying, seeing that there's chaos everywhere.
Well, what happened is that the Inspector General of Police outlawed all protests. So he set up the scene for a confrontation between the police and citizens exercising their right to protest peacefully and unarmed. And so by illegalizing the demonstrations, he suspended the constitution. And that, of course, causes public anger. So people go out ready to fight when they just want to express their voice. I think that's what has happened here. The police were ready to kill, and they did kill people. I hope that measures for accountability are taken.
Yeah, but I also want to understand, if these protests, I don't know if it's the right to ask if they're organic or they're really just being engineered by Raila Odinga. That's one thing I want to know. And also, I mean, will these things have happened? Do you think that William Ruto is being justly rated? I mean, do you think that the people are being patient enough with him? I don't know how much time he's been given to implement the changes that they're demanding. Do you think that it is a fair timing, for people to start, getting on the street to protest? And will they have been protesting if Raila Odinga didn't, initially, a couple of weeks ago, months ago, call for protest?
On basic commodity and raised the cost of living amidst a global economic crisis, a recession. They've increased taxes on petrol, doubled it, VAT on petrol from 8 to 16%. That has a spiral effect. And so yesterday we saw a matatu strike all over the country, including in areas that have never been associated with Raila Odinga, the central parts of the country, that areas where you'd never hear his name. There was a matatu strike all over the country, including those areas. So I think it's gone beyond Raila Odinga, because the cost of living is not just high for Raila Odinga and his supporters. It's high for everyone. Everyone is complaining about those taxes. when National Assembly was considering the bill, they received representation from all over the country, telling them that no, you are going to increase the cost of living, and we cannot absorb more taxes. On the other side, William Ruto, the president, made 50 appointments, cabinet level appointments of people called cabinet administrative secretaries, who are really just cronies and political supporters who would help him to campaign. And so the public see that they're being made to bear more and more burdens. The cost of living is already high and taxes are doubling. I do not think it is just about Raila Odinga at this point.
No, but you know, this is why I'm asking, because of course, if you remember a couple of months ago, Raila Odinga basically was the one championing these protests and calling that people come out, even given, you know, time frames. I'm also seeing that there's plans for 3 days or 4 days of protests from next week, you know, so that's why I, you know, mentioned his name earlier. But has William Ruto been able to explain to Kenyans enough the reasons behind these increases in the cost of living? And that's why I'm asking if he's being judged unfairly.
I beg your pardon?
Can you hear me well, Mr. Dudley?
I had a bit of a moment with my gadget.
Okay, I'm asking if William Ruto is being judged unfairly. Has he been given enough time to maybe also explain to Kenyans the reasons behind the increment in the cost of living?
Well,
yes.
The promises that he made coming into office, he said he wanted 100 days to make certain changes. We are heading to a year. There are promises he made for 3 months, for 6 months, and the things that government can do instantly. When President Kibaki came into office, he promised to give Kenyans free education in 100 days. He done that. I think 100 days is a benchmark for checking government effectiveness of a new government. It's sufficient time to make changes. You'll remember that the current government has bought off MPs and now they have the majority in parliament. They have all they need to give Kenyans the changes that they effected. They've had enough time. And Kenyans are not just worried about the cost of living, they're also worried about the slide back to authoritarianism. The police saying that we banned protest despite Article 37 of the Constitution. So I think it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of the signs of the times, and Kenyans are worried about that.
All right, you had mentioned that this has led to deaths. I mean, we've seen a number, quite a number that's been brandished or branded, especially on the front pages. Can you confirm to us how many people have died so far, if you do have the figures? And most importantly, we do know that it has been stopped and there's possibly going to be a review on taxation. Can you confirm these to us? Mr. Dudley, you there?
I lost you.
All right. My question simply is, can you confirm to us the number of those who have died, the number of the death toll? Can you confirm to us? And secondly, can you also confirm to us if further taxations have been put on hold and what the way forward is as we speak?
Sir, could we take a small break so I just work on my
device? That's fine. That's fine. We'll do that for you. We'll do that for you. Okay. All right. So let's just hold on. I mean, our guest just needs to clear his throat. Osaoge, it's a big conversation, no doubt, and it's a conversation that we'll keep having as long as we're here on Breakfast. I mean, you've asked one of the pertinent questions. We did know that there was someone spearheading the riots. Telling people to go out and, you know,
and go this against... was just, bare months, after William Ruto, took over office.
Exactly.
Yes. But I mean, he also mentioned, that 100 days is a benchmark. I would argue that it's an unfair benchmark, except the plans have not been properly drawn out by William Ruto. If he hasn't been able to explain exactly what he's hoping to achieve 100 days may not really be an adequate benchmark for any president across the world to immediately make changes. I mean, look at the Nigerian president. He's been there for about 40-something days now. If you give him a 100-day benchmark, with subsidy being removed, electricity tariff expected to go up, you cannot say that he, would make immediate changes in 100 days. You could also argue that, well, you may not make immediate changes, but at least what you're doing now seems to be, going, it would likely make it worse in 100 days. Maybe that would be the argument, but I don't know. I don't know if it's, and that's what I'm asking, if it is a Raila Odinga problem or Kenyans genuinely, can see that William Ruto is not doing the right job and might be leading them in the wrong direction. It's a couple of these things that we'll need to figure out.
Right.
But of course, we do not want that there are more deaths in Kenya, that police, of course, brutality to suppress these protests continue. We would like that, of course, these protests, if they will continue, be peaceful, and William Ruto understands what is at stake and, should listen to Kenyans. It's a tight situation to be in.
It's really tight.
Yeah, it doesn't also look nice. It doesn't look good, having these appointments, because he mentioned about 50 new appointments that were made. It doesn't look good having these appointments while Kenyans are suffering. And it's pretty much the same thing here in Nigeria.
It's a lot going on, but we'll keep you updated. Sadly, our guests and the connections are not able, but let's see if we can get it one more time. Dudley, if you can hear me, let's just get that confirmation. We've seen 2, we've seen 7. Can you confirm to us the total number of persons who have died so far? And what's the latest on the taxation? Has there been any statements being made from the camp of the president? Is he going to address the nation?
Well, we do not know exactly how many the government killed yesterday, because there was a media blackout.
You're saying the government. The government, I don't think the government killed.
It is the government. Police officers work for the
maybe
government.
the police officers. The police officers, they are an extension of, the government. But if you say the government, you might be saying the government sent the police officers to kill. I don't know if there's any communique to that.
Well, the Inspector General of Police has command responsibility. He answers directly to High State Office, and the state is responsible for the acts of its agents. In short, the government is responsible to protect human life, and it did not here. So we do not know how many were killed yesterday, because there was a bit of a media blackout. We'll get to know shortly. It's an unfortunate situation. About the taxes, we are doing a case against the Finance Act, and the High Court has suspended the act for now. But there is contempt of that court order, and that is what is increasing the public annoyance. So despite the court order, the price of petrol has gone up. It has now hit 200 Kenya shillings. Just in the dollar's just gone up, it's 141 at the moment. And there's this public annoyance that won't be swept away by police brutality.
Yeah, all right.
Because the citizens outnumber the police anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, as always. Mr. Dudley, thanks a lot for stopping by. Like I said earlier, we hope that the protests do not produce more deaths and more mortalities. And President William Ruto is knows what's at stake and what must be done. We'll be speaking with you again.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so let's leave that story now and move to another one. This time, former Mozambican finance minister, the one known as Manuel Chang, has been handed over to United States officials and is expected to face fraud and corruption charges. Spokesperson for South Africa's Justice and Correctional Services Ministry, Crispin Phiri, said Chang was detained who was detained in South Africa by police at OR Tambo International Airport in December 2018, was surrendered finally to the United States yesterday. Now, according to Phiri, both the US and Republic of Mozambique requested Chang's extradition on various charges.
He was arrested following what had been called Mozambique's biggest corruption scandal, leading to its economic collapse. He was accused of swindling billions of rand, which, of course, were allegedly used to purchase a tuna factory, approximately about $2 billion. In 2022, 11 people, including Armando Ndambi Guebuza, the son of former Mozambican President Armando Guebuza, have been convicted for their role in the scheme. This morning, we're joined by public affairs analyst and lecturer of international relations, Alberto Chipande, University, Wilker Diaz. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. We'd like that you unmute your device. I think it's still muted, so we can hear you clearly. We hope the connection is also good enough for this conversation. Let's get into it and talk about, Mr. Manuel Chang. Shocking story there. I don't know, what the reaction has been like, since his extradition to the United States.
So I don't know, do you hear me right now?
Absolutely.
Yes, we can.
Absolutely.
Yes, we can.
Yes. I think the most part of the Mozambican people or the civil society here in Mozambique want to Manuel Chang go to the US, because we know our justice here in Mozambique, how it functions here. So the best thing for the most part of the civil society is US for Manuel Chang. But for the government, this is not a good news, because Manuel Chang is a very important person to the whole government here in the time of the ex-president Armando Guebuza, and we have some parts of this story, because Manuel Chang is from the party in the power right now. If you see, Manuel Chang is one part of the Frelimo party, so that is one big problem for that, because if you go to the US and talks for some other names, maybe are created some problems, and we will see in this year, next year, there is one election here, so maybe have some problems for the party in the government right now. So the government of the state of Mozambique spend a lot of money to try to push Manuel Chang to here for Mozambique, but don't give nothing with that money, because the final decision of the South Africa justice is Manuel Chang going to the US right now. So we have so many expectations about this process. One part have the expectation Manuel Chang talk more names, because we believe he is not alone on this process. So it's very important, maybe if we have a cooperate with the US government to give more names, or on one part, to other parts, maybe give the loyalty for the other parts of that stories, and don't give any name, not cooperated with the US government. But we have other risk at this time, because maybe if Manuel Chang cooperated with the US government, we doesn't know what is the lines of that deals, and maybe open one big problem and big trouble for our state functions right now.
It seems to be a complicated issue. Manuel Chang, of course, many times Mozambicans have been hoping that he is tried at home, but it never comes to pass. He's always not getting the strong stick of the law. And now excitement is in the air because he has been extradited to the United States, which possibly seems that the law will definitely have a hold on him. But let me ask quickly, you've mentioned it, although in answering the first question, do you possibly think that there are more people involved? And because of the involvement, that's why the law couldn't get a hold of him back home, even in South Africa. And now that he's extradited, do you think that the law will definitely have its force on him, which would definitely lead to excitement in Mozambique for those calling for him to be persecuted?
Of course, I think we have more people inside of that process. It's not possible one person only have that responsibility to sign one paper for $2 billion in name of the state. It's not possible. We have rules here in our state. We have some other people of the high level to put that signature, not only signature, but to give the approval to go on with that process. So I believe it's not possible one person only have this all responsibility maybe this is why, this is the reason of much part of the Mozambican people have that expectation, because it's not possible. We have the other names to give that approval. We have, for example, the debit scandal judgment, for example, at the last years. We have the son of the ex-president Armando Emilio Guebuza. We have the other names, but I believe this is that persons around that process of last years is not only it's not the basically the persons to solve at that case or to find the problem of that case. This is the part of that case. So we need to find who have the head of the snake. What can I say? Where find the voice to give that approval and Manuel Chang to sign that documents, because we believe we have more names inside of that process, and maybe if Manuel Chang give or talk about that names, we have a big scandal in the future, and maybe that persons and the party have the big problems are in our society. But what can I say in the first intervention? Mozambique justice sometimes is not impartial. We have to see. If you see our history, we don't have the separated powers with the government, with the justice, and this sometimes is the one very big problem. I believe it's not only in Mozambique, but in most part of our countries in the Africa continent, we see the same problem. So yes, what can I say right now?
All right, we of course wish Manuel Chang all the best. And of course, for those in Zimbabwe who are, seeking justice, and for everyone who was involved in this fraud to be named, I hope that also happens. Many would question, the involvement of South Africa, and of course, a lot of people would still say that he should have been tried in Mozambique, but it is what it is. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Diaz. We'll be seeing you again.
Thank you.
All right. Stay with us this morning. Let's take you away from news and politics and share with you what's the latest in sports news coming up next.
Right now to sports on Breakfast Central. I am Favor Ito. I will go straight to the stories making headlines in the world of sport. The Kenyan Volleyball Federation has announced the retention of Gideon Taros as the national men's volleyball team coach. Taros, who took over the reins from Moses Epoloto in 2021, will lead the team in the upcoming African Men's Nations Cup in Egypt from the 1st to the 15th of September 2023. Joining Taros on the technical bench are two experienced assistant coaches, David Luango Mutsami from Kenya Prisons and Sami Mulengi from KPA. Elisha Aliwa, the coach of Kenya Defense Forces and a former national team setter, has also been appointed as the team's new trainer, responsible for the physical conditioning and overall fitness. Interesting time ahead of Kenya volleyball. We now go straight to the world of basketball, where Rwanda's girls basketball team have arrived Monastir, Tunisia, ahead of the forthcoming 2023 FIBA Under-16 African Championship slated for July 13th to the 23rd of July. The East African country booked the ticket to the Continental Championship after winning the Zone 5 qualifiers that took place in Kigali in June. The tournament in Tunisia will serve as qualifiers for the 2024 FIBA Under-16 World Cup. All right, who now goes straight to the world of football, where Slovenia goalkeeper Samir Handanovic has left Inter Milan following 11 seasons at the club, the Serie A side said on Wednesday. Handanovic, who in 2019 was named Inter's captain, is now available as a free agent after his contract expired at the end of June. The goalkeeper, who suffered a muscle injury in January, started 14 games in Serie A in the previous campaign, but did not feature in any of the Champions League matches where Andre Onana was selected by coach Simeone Inzaghi. Handanovic, who is 38 years of age, joined Inter Milan in July 2012 and helped them to the 2020-2021 Serie A title, as well as 2 Italian Cups and 2 Super Cups. Interesting one for the goalkeeper. Wait to find out which team would be pursuing the goalkeeper in the summer transfer window. More stories in the world of football. Manchester United began their preparations for the new season with a 2-0 win over relegated Leeds United at the Ulleval Stadion in Oslo on Wednesday. Substitute and Rwanda wonderkid Noah Emran scored the opening goal of the preseason for Erik ten Hag's side, feeding on a pass from Norwegian midfielder Isak Hansen and finding the net with a low finish in the 67th minute. Emran, a 20-year-old French forward, also played a part in United's second goal, setting up substitute Joe Hugill for a close-range finish to seal the victory in the 81st minute. Interesting times ahead for Manchester United, who will be looking forward to challenge for the Premier League title come next season. Straight on to the world of tennis. Spanish top seed Carlos Alcaraz moved into Wimbledon semi-finals for the first time and will face Russian third seed Dani Medvedev in the last four. Alcaraz beat Danish sixth seed Holger Rune, another 20-year-old, 7-6, 7-3, 6-4, 6-4 in his quarterfinal. On seeded Chris Eubanks' dreams run was ended by 27-year-old Medvedev in a 3-5-set contest. Medvedev, who had never been past the last 16 before, beat the American 6-4, 1-6, 4-6, 7-6, 7-4, 6-1. Now, Alcaraz and Medvedev, who have both won major titles on the U.S. hard court, will attempt to reach their first finals on the Wimbledon grass when they play in the last four on Friday. Interesting one for these players, and they'll be looking forward to this tournament.
Hurdle Runa being sent scampering around centre court, and Alcaraz enjoyed that one. The last chance is taken by Alcaraz, and the last four awaits. These two young men, but one is just slightly further down the road in his tennis career. The world number one through to the semi-finals.
Carlos Alcaraz will be looking forward to win at the Grass Court Grand Slam. Interesting one for him, and we look forward to his match against Medvedev. All right, that's it on sports on Breakfast Central. We'll now go straight to, of course, Johansen and Osaogie standing by.
Thanks a lot, Favor. Interesting stories there, and I'm enjoying, tennis these days as there's no EPL. But of course, I'm hoping everyone is ready for Manchester United next season.
But don't forget, Leeds United, they've been relegated already.
Did you see the new buy, Mason Mount, what he did? What a horrible play.
Okay.
It seems he took Chelsea's adrenaline to Manchester United.
It's not far from now, right? The league will start,
August 11 is around the corner, so...
Thanks a lot, Phil.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, let's take you through a quick recap of some of the stories we've shared with you in the past hour on Breakfast Central.
We told you about the former Mozambique minister who's to face corruption charges in United States.
And tax increase, one or more killed as Kenyan protesters defy ban.
All right, FIBA the 16 Rwanda girls arrived to Tunisia ahead of tournament, plus many other sports stories and someone hoping for Manchester United for next season. Let's tell you what's coming up next this morning on Breakfast Central.
Nigeria's president writes National Assembly as he seeks 500 billion naira palliatives.
Government to shut down digital lenders harassing debtors in Nigeria. And we've got the front pages of the papers as well. Stay here. We'll be right back.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
Sometimes, it's not just the distance we travel. It's the gaps we close. It's not the things we buy. It's the memories we create. Sometimes, it's beyond the places we go. It's the connections we make. Not just the things we taste. It's the taste of things to come. And it's never a question of if, but when. Because life is always just a bit better with American Express. Introducing the Access Bank American Express Gold Card and the Metal Platinum Card, now available through Access Bank.
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it. People who know that news is more than just a conversation starter, it's our stories. Because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, with stories that put Africa first.
Nice to join you again on Breakfast Headlines this morning. My name is Lekon Obanjo, and we begin the news at this hour in Central Africa, where Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya, a mediator in the crisis in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, has made a plea for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The former Kenyan president was speaking at a meeting in the eastern city of Goma in the conflict-torn region. The Tutsi M23 rebel force, which has captured vast swaths of territory in DR Congo's border region with Rwanda and Uganda, have asked for talks with the government as a precondition to any surrender. The authorities in Kinshasa, however, have ruled out any dialogue with the force calling for their unconditional surrender and for the withdrawal of the Rwandan troops they say are helping them. We now head to the north of the continent, where the president of the Tunisian Red Crescent, Abdelatif Chabou, says more than 600 migrants have been taken into care, and this comes after a group of sub-Saharan migrants stranded in a desert area on the Tunisian-Libyan border appealed for help in a video. Hundreds of migrants from sub-Saharan countries fled or have been forced out of Tunisia's port city of Sfax after racial tensions fled. Many have been left to fend for themselves in remote desert areas near Tunisia's borders with Algeria and Libya.
I'm dying. Please come to my head. I'm almost dying here. Please come to my head. I need your name.
Évidemment, je tiens à préciser que ces subsahariens qui se sont retrouvés, en particulier à Ras-Jdir, c'est des migrants qui sont venus de toutes parts en réalité, parce qu'il y a un groupe qui est venu de Tunisie, un groupe qui est venu de Libye, ils se sont retrouvés, donc il y a tout un mélange qui s'est retrouvé sur un point frontalier à l'extrême pointe entre la Tunisie et la Libye. Et le nombre définitif, en fait, c'est 630 qui ont pu être
And now in West Africa, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has written to the House of Representatives seeking an amendment to the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act. The president says the amendment is to allow the federal government source 500 billion naira for palliatives to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, read the president's letter during plenary on Wednesday. Tinubu says the money will be sourced from the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act of 819.5 billion naira. Paul Alaje, Chief Economist, SPM Professionals, joined us on the news earlier.
What seems to be ubiquitous around Nigeria is the impact of inflation and hardship, especially as a small potent among poor Nigerians and those that are of the middle class. You recall, or you notice, or you observe that those that are poor, about 40 to 60% of their income is now being consumed by transport, which means they are left with little or nothing to live on regarding their other very necessary, important expenses. And the middle class is also has not also been exempted. Many Nigerians are talking and complaining about the impact of subsidy. We still have the hope that in the long run, the policies of government regarding subsidy removal will have positive impact. I think the president and his team have heard this, and they feel it's important for them to start taking urgent decisions to support the people. Perhaps that is the reason why the 500...
Staying in West Africa, the Côte d'Ivoire government on Wednesday says 30 people have died in the past 3 months in floods triggered by an exceptionally strong rainy season. Government spokesman Amadou Koulibaly, speaking after a cabinet meeting, says the country's economic capital, Abidjan, has been particularly hit, recording 22 deaths. He adds that authorities will step up pre-deployment of rescue services in risk areas and pursue a program to demolish illegally built shanty homes there. Last year's rainy season claimed 19 lives. In the east of the continent, 6 people were killed in Kenya on Wednesday as demonstrators defied a ban to join a protest called by opposition leader Raila Odinga against tax hikes. A police officer says 3 deaths were recorded in Mlolongo, where a group of demonstrators had blocked the road to protest. The police officer adds that 2 others died in Kitengela and 1 in Mali. Another policeman also confirmed the 6 fatalities in 3 towns.
The government have got many empty promises. Like now, the matatu fares are up, fuel costs are up, food cost is very high. We can't afford even to get a single meal. We go on maybe on water per day. These are very fake government. And we are praying for Baba to be hard, like, to press it hard until something happens. We need low costs. We are living in hard times. Kenya is in a poor state. It shall reach a time when even to educate our children shall be a problem.
Polisi wanatumia nguvu kupita kiasi kwa wananchi. Japo wengi wameumizwa, hata kuna ndugu yetu huko ndani bado anashughulikiwa, amepigwa risasi kwa mguu, na imekadhabisha wananchi kama hawa wenye tuko hapa hivi. Hatujafurahia kabisa. Polisi wanatumia nguvu sana, na nilikuwa naomba sana Ruto, mambo yenye inaendelea hii ungetuangalia upande wetu pia, sisi ni wananchi, maake wewe uliiba kura na haijatufurahisha, na sisi tunaumia, we are suffering. Sisi hatupiganii ODM, hatupiganii nini, lakini sisi tumeumia, yani tunaumia kutoka ndani ya nyumba. Hatuna unga, hatuna pesa yoyote, pesa yote umekula, sisi tunaumia, kazi hakuna kwa vijana.
And that's all at this hour. Joe and Osar will take it from here.
All right, thanks a lot, Lekon. Sad to see the flooding in Côte d'Ivoire there. We, of course, pray for those people. We'll be seeing you again pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be here.
All right. Stay with us this morning, away from the news bulletins. Let's now go to the newspapers this morning and share with you the major stories making headlines across the continent.
Let's start off with our very first paper this morning for the second hour, not for Breakfast Central, but for the second hour. The Guardian is where we're going to, and it has that big header there just to remind you, tough times for students, parents as schools hike fees by 200%. Page 6 has that story. I always like the fact that they give us an infographic, so let's spend a few seconds to take a look at it. Average tuition fee in federal universities are from 20,000 naira to now 80 to 100,000 naira. Take note. So if your child was paying 20,000 naira, your child will end up paying 100,000 naira. And of course, that money comes from you. Average tuition in state universities from 30,000 naira, now 150 to 200,000 naira. So that's the difference. You do have the federal universities, which is a bit cheaper. I wouldn't use the word cheap, I would say lesser in terms of cost. And then state universities are indeed higher. Okay. Now, inflation rate is 22.4%. So average sundry fees from 1,005 to 20,000. Average accommodation fees will go from 20 to 60. And a few students whom I heard talking, they said the dormitories, not just that, the apartments that are just within the school area, everyone is increasing, they're hiking their fares, the fees and all that. Even rents are indeed going up. So this is worth reading. So if you're a parent, you're a student, you're a child, family, and as a whole, you might want to go through this article. Very key, so you can start planning, because these are the things that we will have to battle with. Amid $1 billion legacy debt, Nigeria pushes for $12 billion revenue, 10 gas FIDs. Page 3 has that story. Ladoja takes Makinde Olubadan, 10 others to court over Ibadan chieftaincy law review. Okay. And the one in red, the caption, Tinubu writes reps for 500 billion naira to cushion subsidy removal impact. We'll be talking about that story much later on, very soon. And Vandal steals second Niger bridge fittings. This one, I'd say, in the Nigerian parlance, it choke. All right. Second Niger bridge. Remember, there was a soft launch.
Yes.
Let's soft launch. Did I just say that? Okay, so soft launch is when it's not fully ready, it's not complete, and so on. But Vandal has already started stealing the fittings. Like, remove some things there before it's come on.
Yeah, same thing. I think also in the Federal Capital Territory, there was a video clip. I saw CCTV.
Manholes.
Yes, someone was just lifting the manholes, putting them in his vehicle and driving off. Yeah, I mean, welcome to Nigeria. It's not peculiar to Nigeria. There always will be criminals who will vandalize government property, but it really just tells about the kind of people that we are also. And, the mentality the average Nigerian has, that it's okay if the bridge collapses as long as it's able to eat, and is able to make, a little money from selling off bits and pieces of that, of it. Remember, in the news on Tuesday, I believe there was a story of the runway lights or something like that in one of the airports, that was also taken or stolen. And these aren't things. This is not a phone charger. That this is it's a thing that would take. It's a process, for you to be able to take it from where it is, to vandalize it, and then take it away from there. So there's many people that would be involved. There's almost no crime that we speak about, concerning, across Nigeria. There's none of it that happens with just one person involved. There's a couple of people, that get involved to make these things possible. Same way when they say a person stole 100 billion naira, it wasn't just one person who, walked in and put all the money in his
there.
back
There must
pocket.
have been somebody in the bank, somebody who transacted the money,
People
somebody
approved
if it was
payments.
cash, somebody who moved the bag.
Yes, people turned the other way when it was going on, even if they weren't necessarily part of it. So, well, anyway, if we're going to fight corruption, we have a total overhaul that is necessary.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
All right. Over to you, Osage.
All right. Now let's go to the Daily Trust newspapers, away from the Guardian, still here in Nigeria. It says here, bring all on board to end killings. And that's the Chief of Army Staff to Plateau State Governor. Says dialogue, vital solution. And also troops kill 3 gunmen in Mangu. I saw a picture of that yesterday. One of them were with a police ID card. Well, the story says, that those were gunmen. So we're hoping that, that is true. Forecloses amnesty for bandits, and also we are at a challenging junction, says Muftuang. Tinubu writes reps 500 billion naira for palliatives. Households, poultry industry face tough choices over rising maize price. We can also find here bakers to hike bread price by 15%. Thank God I don't eat bread. NECO releases common entrance results. 6 pupils score. What does 01 mean? I'm not sure what that is. Court restrains minister. FCTA orders from demolition Trademore Estate. And also, I watched gunmen kill my husband, a mother of 3, is saying. Yes, with regards to the very first story that I read, with the Chief of Army Staff to Plateau State Governor saying, bring all on board to end killings. I remember I did have a conversation yesterday and I said, that these things need to be treated with a level of urgency that we've never seen before. And I hope that the current administration and the Plateau State government and the army chiefs, the security chiefs rather, understand what is at stake and how every single life needs to be protected. I wish that we were at a stage or we were at a level where Nigerian life was valued to the extent that if 5 people died because they were lackluster in their attitude, because they wasted time, because they seem to have not treated it seriously enough, that they should also be made to pay for those lives. But we're not there yet. We might wake up tomorrow morning here and another dozen people have been killed, and we're still dragging our feet and setting up, figuring out how we're going to gather intelligence and stuff like that. It's not a good look. It's really not a good look.
Well, it's not at all. But my concern on this front page is bakers to hike bread price. I'm really concerned. I don't eat bread, I'm speaking for all the bread lovers, the breadwinners, if you put it that way. Currently, the cost of bread is 1,000 naira for sliced bread. It went up from, you still have sliced bread that goes for 800. I buy this regularly. So you also have bread that went from 300, 400 to 800, 850, 900, 1,000. And now they're increasing it by 15%. My intuition tells me that a lot of people will take advantage of these things and further do that. So if you're doing 1,000 naira, times 15%, you're looking at 1,200 for sliced bread, 1,150.
1,150, yeah.
Yeah, and people will take advantage of that. So precarious times are indeed here. And that leads us to our conversation, which we're going to have a few minutes from now, talking about the 500 billion naira palliative. It's needed now, many have said. Some are saying, no, it's a wrong move. But we'll get to find out what the decisions truly are. But that's pretty much all we can take on the front pages of the papers this morning. If you just tuned in, this is Breakfast Central. Feel free to talk with us. Let's hear from you. You can tweet us at News Central TV on Twitter. You can go on if you have any message. Feel free to share with us. I would like to hear from you, as we've rightly said. Any stories that caught your fancy, any stories that you would love to react to, whatever you've got to say, we're here to take it all. After the break, our top stories will be next. Should 500 billion be granted? And possibly, should Nigerians jubilate? And how will you get a share? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. And now the conversation is in Nigeria, where its president, Bola Tinubu, has asked lawmakers to approve 500 billion naira, about $638 million of spending to cushion the impact of the removal of gasoline subsidies in the West African nation. According to the letter read on the floor of the House of Representatives by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas, President Tinubu said the money will be sourced from a supplementary budget of 819.5 billion naira approved earlier by lawmakers. Recall that Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari introduced a supplementary budget in 2022 for capital projects due to the impact of the flood on farmlands and road infrastructure.
Well, let's also tell you that the lifespan of the budget has since been extended till 31st of December. President Tinubu had announced the removal of fuel subsidy during his Inauguration Day speech, a decision that saw the price of petrol jump threefold across the country. Now, while the administration has been commended for taking swift action on petroleum subsidy, there are still concerns about the impact of the removal and its effect on almost every sector of the country's economy and households. This morning on our top story here on Breakfast Central, we are being joined by Jide Ologun, a lawyer and development advocate. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with you.
All right, so I'm just going to go straight with my questions will come directly from the reactions of Nigerians. I don't want to waste any further time trying to bring about the things we've read, the things I've read, the things I've thought about. So I'm just going to go straight because we are all Nigerians and we're all Africans. So first question I'd like you to look into, being a development and advocate, is this the only way, or is this the best decision that the president is left with in cushioning the effect and impact of fuel subsidy? Because that's a question everyone is asking. Must you? Shouldn't you have? Is this the only way?
You know, there are many options, and the wise already advise that you look into precedents when you are embarking on a campaign or an action, like we say in public relations. For instance, we've had situations in the past where the government transferred or gave out cash to citizens that did not reflect a meaningful impact. And when you look at the state of inflation in this country now, and the fact that we have about 133 million Nigerians within the multifaceted poverty bracket, the transferring cash to households or the vulnerable may not help. I think right now, the government should focus more on the fact that, okay, Nigerians have adjusted to this. How do we deal with the fundamental problems we have? How do we channel the resources we have towards ensuring, for instance, paying attention to the oil and gas sector, that we revive our refineries, we become productive, we eliminate the unnecessary expenditure in transporting the crude oil to Europe and other foreign countries, refining, bringing back to Nigeria at a cost, which led to the under-recovery, this subsidy that had been removed, so that we solve this problem going forward. Right now, a liter of petrol is about 500 naira. So if you give a household 5,000 naira, for instance, as palliative, to what extent would that be able to help the family? All right. And now, some are on the advocacy that let's increase minimum wage to 200,000 naira. You know, the Minimum Wage Act amended raised in 2019 raised it to 30,000 naira, and even that 30,000 naira now, it's a paltry sum, just about $39 or thereabout, you know, in a month. And the big question is that even if we choose to increase the minimum wage, how many of the citizens are within the formal sector that will benefit from minimum wage? So what the market woman understands is that, okay, the salary has increased to 200, so it will skyrocket into unbearable inflation. So let's focus. I know there is pressure on the president on palliatives and palliative. May I say this, that when you talk about palliative measures in medicine, you are just dealing with the symptoms and not with the cause of the ailment. So can we just, as we have patiently been adjusting, focus on the fundamental challenges? How can we revive our economy? How can we provide more jobs? How can we block the leakage? I appreciate the fact that about 7 trillion naira that disappear into accounts of private individuals by way of subsidy. We've dealt with that, and we have reports amplifying the corruption in that sector. For instance, the consumption has reduced. So they inflated the consumption, collected subsidy, and some will still smuggle these products abroad. And the foreign countries that have been ripping us off are now feeling the brunt also. So for once, let's have a substantive intervention. But if the government chooses to go ahead with the palliatives, I'm still also saying, let it be one that will be meaningful. If not, if, for instance, the choice is to share money, when they finish spending that money, it's as if you have not done anything.
Mr. Ologun, you know, there, of course, you know, are still questions with regards to the whole subsidy conversation, you know, with the narrative that other countries are now, you know, feeling the brunt of ending subsidy, not also being able to question, you know, why we had fake figures of petrol consumption every day for years. You know, we haven't really questioned that. What the real price of petrol will be, nobody really knows. You know, we are really just playing around with, okay, let's assume it's 500 naira and that's, you know, where it is. You know, we haven't really gotten, and we're in July already. So we haven't really even gotten to understand what the real price of petrol would be. If subsidy is truly removed, if the Nigerian government is being honest with Nigerian citizens. But the things that you've mentioned, can we beat our chest and say that the current administration is not aware that this is a bad move? I mean, economic analysts across the country would say pretty much the same thing you've just said, that there are other ways with which we can address these issues and make things, you know, seemingly easier for Nigerians, not dashing them money, because you cannot continue to borrow 500 billion naira every month to spread across, you know, Nigeria and dash them, you know, free money. So can we say that the current administration is not aware, even if we currently don't have a Minister of Finance, but they don't have economic advisors enough to advise them and say, okay, this is a bad move? Or are we as Nigerians really just meant to accept that, well, they know that this is a bad move, but I mean, you know, we're Nigeria, so we'll deal with it like this. Is that what we're going to just accept as our reality?
Let me say this. During the last dispensation, I kept saying that years down the line, many may not remember the ministers and ministers of state, but will not forget that former President Muhammadu Buhari decided over the affairs of the country. And now we have President Tinubu, you know, on that seat. And whatever decision he permits will be recorded against his name. And like you said now, you know, I expect that as a seasoned accountant, that he doesn't take a step that some will perceive, in fact, they're already saying it, as an attempt to settle party loyalty. Because obviously, I'm not going to collect 5,000 naira from any government as palliative. You know, what does it do to me? Why don't we focus on, for instance, where are the tough areas? For instance, if I have constant electricity now, then I know my concern is just to fuel my vehicles, all right? So I don't need to bother myself about fueling generators and all those things. What about if we begin to invest on infrastructure, on education? Because it's been argued globally so that this subsidy scam, in the way of impacting us corruptly, you know, has negatively impacted education, health sector. So those areas of needs, the basic amenities, if they are provided systematically, we know that it won't be done overnight. Then Nigerians will understand, and we know at the end of the day that the market forces will bring down the pump price of these products. Let me say this. There is no way we are not going to save cost if we have refineries that refine this crude oil. We have crude oil in abundance in Nigeria. Nigeria has the largest deposit of proven gas in Africa. So if we can invest in the next level, the secondary level of processing these raw materials, which the foreign countries have leveraged on, then we will be better. We even provide jobs, then we can be able to fight insecurity. Let me say this, insecurity is tied to corruption in the land. Those who share the subsidy money, who lie to the government, who cheat us, we want to cover their tracks by distracting the society. You know, and look at what has happened in the forex window, where we have thrown everything open. So no one can go to central bank, buy dollar at 460, and step out of the central bank and sell the same dollar for 770. What do you do with that profit, if not to sponsor criminals to torment the nation? So these are issues. So we expect that the president, as a seasoned accountant, will look at fiscal measures, monetary measures, social impact measures, and be able to deliver on what is effective. I just said it now. I will not appreciate the government giving me 5,000 naira. I don't need it. Let me cope with the toughness of this time, but I will appreciate constant electricity, which I will pay for, by the way. I will appreciate good roads. I will appreciate, good education for children in my community. I will appreciate good health sector. We have the National Health Insurance Authority. We have various schemes in this nation that have not been delivering effectively to the citizens. And when you focus on this, there won't be need for palliative. I just said it now. Palliative medically means dealing with the symptoms and not with the cause of the ailment.
Okay.
And if you don't sleep for 7 days and you have headache, you don't deal with that headache alone. You deal with the reasons why you have not been sleeping, so that you don't have a repeat. And this is what we are saying. People have been stealing. Now we are discovering how some people have gone to breach the pipelines of NNPC. We have discovered those who are stealing our crude oil. We just set one on fire recently, So when you block all this and let everybody know that this country must develop, then we'll not be talking about palliative. We'll not be talking about, okay, now, I said it that Nigeria has the largest deposit of proven gas in Africa, which is the truth. But how much of this gas have we flared in years past? I read a report that really made me sober, that Nigeria has flared enough gas to provide electricity for 800 million citizens.
Yeah.
So can we maximize these resources? We have the gold deposit in Zamfara. And let me ask a simple question. If, for instance, we sail through with the Mambila Power Project and we have constant electricity in Nigeria, it will bring investors in. We have foreign direct investors. It will make the home life easy. Come back from work. I don't need to put the generator, the carbon monoxide and everything.
Small and medium, small businesses will also benefit.
Thrive as well.
I prefer substantive intervention to. I don't need any palliative.
Okay, Mr. Logo. Yes, I mean, we've heard your point. What you've done here as well is to proffer solutions, like you said. And let's not look at palliative. Using the medical language, it's not actually curing the major problem. But as it stands, Nigerians need answers. They need quick solution. They can no longer hold. Holding the fourth weight is like it's a drama. It's problem. It's challenging. But I'm also worried, and I would like you to take on this question. The supplementary budget that was approved 3 days before President Muhammadu Buhari left office, costing about 819 billion naira. Its original intention was to be used to cushion the effects of flooding, not forgetting to also complete capital projects and the likes. But we want to borrow from that same money. So what the money was intended to be used for, it has not been used for that. And yet we want to borrow from there. The floods are just around the corner. We've seen countries like Cameroon, Abuja, just to mention. What's going to happen again when we finish, that money, borrow from there? Aren't we putting ourselves in a very precarious situation once more?
That is what I mean by substantive approach. Even that supplementary budget will have to be funded. Let's touch on that. And right now, what percentage of our revenue do we push into servicing debt? The indebtedness of Nigeria was located at about 77 trillion or thereabout recently. And so And that's an absolute concern you have prompted here. And so how are we going? And again, please let me amplify the meaning of palliative. Palliative means, for instance, there is no farm in this community, people are hungry. So just give them 10 naira to go and eat. But we don't need to plant so that there can be food sufficiency. No. The wise man says that it is better to teach a man to fish than to give him fish to eat. So let us empower people. Like I said, a resounding palliative for me, for instance, would be constant electricity. Citizens will benefit from it. You have cottage industries springing up. People can organize themselves. It's even healthy for us, So then escalate the transportation facilities we have, bring down the struggles of the people, bring down the inflation. The food inflation now is turbulent. There is a product we love so much in my family that we used to buy for $7.50 for a unit in 2016. I bought 3 days ago at $1,750.
Mr. Logo, I think.
So 1,000 naira has gone on a concern for me. So I appreciate the fact that the president and his team are thinking about palliatives. But please, let's focus more on substantive interventions going forward. And that is what we call sustainable development. Sustainable development, so that going into the future, we can claim to now be rubbing shoulders with the developed countries of this world. And I say that Nigeria has the largest deposit of blessings in Africa.
I agree with that.
The total population of Africa is about 1.5 billion. And this Africa, out of the 8 billion in the world, has 40% of the resources of the world. So Africa has no business with poverty. And these are my positions. So I appreciate the president.
We agree with you.
But think through, please.
Yeah, it's just really, it's so much to unpack and to discuss. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We hope that the current administration makes the best decisions for Nigerians. I would always say that it would be really heartbreaking if we continue with the same procedures and the same policies and the same way of governance, the way we're just coming from. We'll be speaking with you again. Thank you for your time once again.
Thank you. God bless Africa. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Logo.
Okay. All right. Laughing gas was, of course, known to be used by medical professionals, if you remember from way back, to sedate their patients undergoing medical procedures. It has now become a viral party drug among young Nigerians, used for a short-term euphoric effect. The recent drug addiction has forced the country's drug law enforcement agency to clamp down on the sale and usage of the product. News Central's Adeshewa Odushoga examines the impact of this trend in this report.
From the discovery of one substance to another, the trend of drug addiction and abuse among Nigerian youth appears unending and worrisome. In the past, there have been cases of abuse of cough syrup and painkillers, and now the attention is gradually shifting to the abuse of nitrous oxide, also known as laughing gas, spreading like wildfire. Nitrous oxide is a colorless gas often used by medical professionals to sedate patients undergoing minor medical procedures or as pain relief.
We use it during anesthesia. So when you want to do surgery, it's that gas that you can use to put someone to sleep.
But now it appears there are other use and demands for nitrous oxide in the market, as more young partygoers use it as a party drug to get intoxicated after they infuse this gas into balloons, from where it's then inhaled for euphoric effect.
When people take this kind of thing and the brain senses this whole false feeling, which is all false of euphoria and all of that, it's very, very much pleasurable.
This new trend generated reactions and concerns from some online health influencers.
It's toxic to your brain and the spinal cord. If you look at that trend, I attached stories of people that had paralysis. It can cause anemia and drop the blood cells, coupled with things like sudden death, heart attacks, and a lot of that. So it's a lot of things. And I think we need to be worried.
Following the outburst, the chairman of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, retired Brigadier General Mohammed Buba Marwa, in a statement, directed all commands and formations of the agency to clamp down on the illegal sale of the product.
A circular already issued to all our commands and formations today, directing them to look out for this either at all the entry points, at the seaports, at the airports, intra-city, intercity highways, and within our communities. Anywhere they are found, they have a responsibility to seize them, especially those in possession illegally or those who are abusing, who are using it illegally.
Health practitioners have warned that the dangerous use of nitrous oxide can lead to the depletion of body's vitamin B12 levels, permanent brain damage, spinal injuries, and other neurological complications, especially psychiatric symptoms. Adeshewa Odushoga reporting for News Central.
All right, and as always, a brilliant report by Adeshewa Odushoga on, of course, the new trend or new type of drug abuse in Nigeria. Of course, like you said, it's moved from cough syrup to different types of marijuana with different names from Canada and from Ghana and from Congo. Now, of course, it's laughing gas. And I have seen this in a party. I did tweet about this about a month ago or so. I was at a party at night, rave at night, and I saw people moving around with balloons, and this were adults, So in my head, I was wondering, what's with the balloons, that is grown as people? Because this weren't, it wasn't a children's party, but they were moving around with balloons and they were all inhaling. And then I saw there were a couple of guys standing around with these canisters, that they filled, it up with. I was confused. I wasn't sure what it was. And then, of course, responses on Twitter, let me know that it's a new thing, where people inhale this nitrous oxide, for some type of, high, as it is called. And, I don't know. I don't know why, anyone would do that. But unfortunately, of course, I think the new conversations are arising because Olamide, the Nigerian artist, in trying to promote his new album, posted a picture, where he had a balloon with him. He was holding, a model, and then there were the canisters, all around the, in the apartment. So that's what brought up the conversations again about how dangerous this is and why, this, suddenly is the new craze among young Nigerians.
It is really the new craze. And if you're watching and you've actually followed through in that report, if you're thinking of trying it, you might want to think twice. That could be your first step towards doom. And before you know it, it will not end well, not may. The end is guaranteed.
Yeah, I just don't think we'll do enough research before we get involved in these things. Yeah. Because it might be really addictive also.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Because if you feel some type of way, you just want to feel happy. You go, it's drug. You always try to find it and keep yourself together. Anyway, you're still watching Breakfast Central on News Central. Let's tell you what's still to come here.
Yes, Nigerians lament over increase in UK tuition fees.
We did see that in the Guardian newspaper, the explanation as well. I will also bring to you our top story of the day here on Breakfast Central. Do well to stay with us.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa first.
Welcome back. You're now watching Trend Wave on Breakfast Central. We begin Trend Wave today in Nigeria, where several loan apps have become a thorn in the flesh of their users, as many of them are seen on various social media platforms harassing consumers or spreading defamatory messages to their friends and families. Now, in response to this continued complaints, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission in Nigeria has cautioned that it will contact Google to permanently delete digital money lending apps that harass and slander customers from its Play Store. This was announced by Babatunde Irukera, the Chief Executive Officer of FCCPC, during an interview on Tuesday, the 11th of July. Earlier in the year, the FCCPC mandated loan apps to register with the Commission, and so far, about 180 apps have gotten full or conditional approval from the Commission to operate in the country. Despite this, digital lenders, otherwise known as loan sharks, have continued to harass defaulters, leaving the Commission with no option but to take necessary actions to protect consumers. Well, I'm sure many of us have experienced this one way or the other, but we'll take a look at how Nigerians are reacting to this move by the FCCPC. That comment is from I am Krista Obet. It says, yes, please. Yesterday, someone called me and said I should tell some guy I've never heard his name in my life to pay the money he owes them, that if he doesn't pay, they will have to take drastic measures that will affect me as well. And they just went on to hang up without allowing me to rain insults as I should. I was so angry. Imagine spoiling my day, because if I knew the debtor, he would have collected the insults on their behalf. God save them. But let's take a look at more reactions to this story. Fried_A729 says, my sister borrowed 330 naira to buy recharge cards from them. They're threatening to put her on wanted list. I agree with the idea of deleting of the app permanently. Let's take a look at more comments. Tobiloba says, to collect credit is sweet, but to pay back, wahala. The only way to get your money back on debtors is by publicly harassing them. I guess here in Nigeria, you definitely have to do that. I_Pisho says, they shouldn't waste any time on that. Delete them, please. I can't even rest because someone else borrowed money from them. They keep disturbing my peace, telling me a friend refused to pay a loan. We hardly talk, bro. Wow, that's an interesting comment there. That one is from IMP Show. But let's take a look at more stories from Nigeria, where Nigerian students are currently facing tough times in the United Kingdom after the Naira equivalent of their tuition fees increased by over 60% following the latest policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria to unify the nation's foreign exchange rates. About 2 weeks after President Bola Tinubu promised to unify the nation's multiple exchange rates, the Apex Bank has decided to float the Naira at the investors and exporters windows of the foreign exchange markets. Since then, the Naira has fallen from $471 to $750, and also 589.4 to a pound to 957.2 to a pound. This has led to about a 60% increase in tuition fees for students in the UK, and this has put more pressure on many Nigerians that are schooling in the United Kingdom and beyond. Many of these students may now have to struggle to pay the balance of their tuition due to the strong dip in the value of the Naira. Will this be a turn-off for aspiring Nigerians who want to leave the country for educational purposes? Well, we don't know, but we'll see how people are reacting to this quite interesting one. This is kind of a situation that has hit home for so many of us. I mean, for family members and for people who have friends who also are students in the United Kingdom. But we'll see how people are reacting on social media to these stories. That's a comment from Insta Commenter. It says, what is the benefit of a Nigerian studying abroad to the Nigerian economy? Zero. All they do is take money from Nigeria to develop foreign countries, and once they graduate, 99% of them do not come back to Nigeria. Why on earth is the Nigerian government subsidizing middle-class families who can afford to send their children abroad when people are dying of hunger? It's better to subsidize education in Nigeria. That's a remark from Insta Commenter, and I think he has a valid point there. Kings for Real goes on to say our government should invest a lot in our education system. Meanwhile, most of the people jackpying are not really jackpying for... Jackpying is, traveling out of the country. They're not really traveling out of the country for education purposes. They're traveling for passports, they're traveling for better job opportunities, etc. And it says that our government should please fix the basic amenities like power, security, health, and education, and enable the environment for businesses to thrive. Then things will surely change. And it goes on to say, God bless Nigeria. Let's take a look at more reactions to this story. King Phil says, when I was doing my master's in Europe, I saw lots of Nigerians, mostly guys, going through depression. Abroad is not for everybody. Wow, that's an interesting one there. Choice Healthy Living goes on to say, to put this in context, if your school fee is $15,000 before the unification, you would be paying 7.2 million naira. But right now, if you will have to pay 11.7 million naira, and that's a whopping sum. A lot of students may need or may be forced to drop out. That's a remark from Choice Healthy Living. Folarin Shaw Wilfred goes on to say that, man, for me don't show us shege, but what can we do? Every government with its own policy. I pray God sees us through, because paying this fee with pounds is highly tasking. I goes on to say, I pray God sees us through. Nigerians must definitely pray about everything. And surely, I'm sure this has kind of affected everybody. I have a friend of mine who was supposed to travel out of the country for her schooling. And unfortunately, because of the exchange rate right now, she can't afford to do that. And she's been really depressed. So I think this is a situation that's kind of hit home for so many of us. Even if when you're not necessarily traveling, you probably have someone who is there. You probably have someone who wants to, but cannot for this reason, and is highly affected by this. I don't know if perhaps Osaoge or Joe, if you have a comment to this situation.
It's a tough one now. I mean, just as the Guardian newspaper put it, though it was projecting that of Nigeria, there's another article I stumbled on yesterday. It was also projecting the challenges that's being faced outside of the country. But the Guardian also, linked both of them. So if you have a child in the UK now, as we speak, it's a major crisis you're going through, because you're battling inflation here in Nigeria, taking care of things at home front. And you're also battling, trying to ensure that you could pay the tuition fees outside of the country. So it's a double decker, I like to call it that way. That's what it is. So I agree. I also take sides with some of those commenters that you actually brought forward.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, the exchange rate on the parallel market for the pound is more than 1,000 currently. And so, I can imagine what it will be like paying 20, 25, 15, 18,000 pounds for school fees, or even more. But of course, this, would just let you remind, or it's a good time to remind you guys that Nigerians will still go. And then you can then now calculate how much the United Kingdom has made from Nigerians in just school fees in the last, 5 years alone, just the last 5 years alone.
You're saying
it
five,
is
maybe
insane.
Two.
No, just in the last 2 years. It is insane. But Nigerians will still go. And this is not, I wouldn't blame the United Kingdom. There are places where you can call them out. But this is really just, evidence of what the reality is for the young Nigerian who has looked at himself and looked at his trajectory and, thought to himself that there is no future for me here in Nigeria. There's nothing to cling to, there's nothing to hold on to. So I would rather parents will sell their property, sell their land, sell their houses to afford that 20,000 pound school fees just to get their children out of Nigeria. It's the reality of, the current situation here in the country. So
it's a sad situation, very sad.
Particularly, the challenge I have is the fact that when you go out to school, I think it's more better if people come back to, try to use these skills to better our economy. If not, we're not going anywhere.
Hey, please.
Where is the job?
Why are you angry? Don't you have a job?
We're gonna post this on YouTube, so and post your name right on
there.
there.
Where's the job?
So they know who to attack.
Let me say, like someone said online, there's no job. Thank you so much, Liz. Thanks for joining us. Nice one, eh?
Pleasure.
All right.
Imagine paying, 25,000 pounds, to go to school and, come back to, Port Harcourt to earn 200,000 a month.
You're even saying 200,000. You're not saying 120. 120,000. By the way, our top story for the day, before we wrap up, I did a quick calculation. I'd like to do it to our viewers as well. If you have your calculator, bring it out. Just type in 500 billion naira. Of course, you should know how many zeros that is. So go ahead and divide it by 250 million Nigerians to know how much you will be getting should the presidency or the president decide to say he wants to share money or monies into your account. When we did the calculation on Saturday, I came up with 2,000 naira.
If you so they would first of all wouldn't be sharing with every citizen. They normally would say it's the poorest of the poor.
In this case, everybody is poor. I'm poor.
Yeah, well, yeah. You know, but if they say that it is the ones below the Nigerian multi-dimensional poverty line,
poor has grades.
Yes.
All right. Someone whose salary is 50,000 and someone whose salary is 100,000.
At this point, they're pretty much the same
they're
thing.
Poor.
I get it.
All right.
You know,
regardless.
but it's almost, I mean, even if they decide to share it to 125, 130 million Nigerians, it is still a waste of money.
So are you poor, Sergey?
No, I'm not poor. I'm not. I wouldn't call myself among the wealthy or the rich,
So
class.
you're not poor.
No, I wouldn't.
So
say I'm
you can
poor.
fill my tank this morning.
No, I can't.
Now that's the type of poor I mean. Okay, but I do get your point. Multidimensional poor and so on. But then again, it just shows that it's 2,000 naira you're going to get, and with that calculation, a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. I mean, I've had a great time here this morning. So okay.
Yeah, same here. Let's quickly share with you what's coming up later today on News Central TV. 10 a.m. West African time, African headlines coming your way.
2 p.m. you've got Village Square Africa.
And much later at 10 p.m. it is Nigeria Tonight. Don't miss it.
Don't miss it for a thing. That's how it's said. All right, guys. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you so much for staying with us on Breakfast Central. Je m'appelle Joe Hansen.
And I am Osaogi Ogbawan. See you on Friday morning.
Au revoir.